From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, it is Tuesday. Tom Lang breaking things down with the Miami game coming up, as well as Corey and I just shooting the breeze, talking about the press conference that happened yesterday. Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. It's Tuesday. We said that already. It's Taco Tuesday all day, though, not just a lunch special. All day long at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, as well as, I think, $1.99 Coronas. I should probably check that out, but I'm like 99.9% sure I'm going to trust my instinct. And, Corey, it's trivia, right? Tuesday's trivia?
It is trivia. Tuesday trivia. Not sure if I'm going to be there or not, but if I am, get ready because we're going to put on a show.
All right, I like
but not sure if I'm going to be there or not. But, yeah, I've said this before, but I always forget to partake in the Taco Tuesdays. I get my normals, my wings or my salad or something, or my sandwich that I make into a wrap, and I forget about the tacos, but I think I'm going to do it this time, buddy.
All right. Hard or soft shell, beef or chicken, all day at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Hit the thumbs up button if you wouldn't mind, please. If you're listening to us on YouTube, 5-star rating and review on the Apple iOS stuff. Look up Wake Up Warchant on the podcast app. Hit the one on the right. Florida State taking on Miami, 7:30 ABC, primetime national telecast. Next week, Syracuse, 8 p.m. Poor Ira.
Yeah, man. How about that? They did it again.
Oh, poor Ira, man. Yeah, I don't know what I would have done if I would have been assigned to go up to that game with Ira. I would have just sucked up and shut up and gone, but just come on. Come on, Charlotte. Come on, Greensboro. Help us out here. But we got Miami ahead of us here. Hope everybody had a great Halloween filled with Reese's Cups and no Almond Joys and maybe some candy corn. I like candy corn, but all right, Corey. So Miami.
I want everybody to know that I turned off all my lights in my house because I didn't have any candy. And who wants to deal with kids, right? I don't want to keep getting up. I just had gallbladder surgery. I ain't got time for this. I was in my bedroom watching my iPad with the lights off.
I'm somewhat scarred and traumatized almost. I was really excited when I got my house, when I moved into the house I was renting in Tallahassee. I never had a house, so I was always in an apartment. No one comes trick-or-treating in an apartment complex. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to put out pumpkins. I'm going to have like a big old bowl of candy. And early on, it was like 6 o'clock. It's duskish, and a couple parents with their little 4-year-old kid, trick-or-treat. Oh, adorable. Grab some candy. And then I remember like 9:30, 10 o'clock, I still had the light on because I still had some candy left. And middle school age kids showed up, and it wasn't even trick or treat. It was just this aggressive grab at the bowl, and just, I mean, the little kid would just grab one piece of candy and put it in their bag and move on. I mean, these kids, it was like they were in a food desert and hadn't seen anything in ages, just grabbing all they could. And they're like, are you going to finish can we take all of it? I'm like, no, you can't take all of it.
What's the matter with you?
Seriously. So I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. So also I'm getting the driveway paved. So I don't want anybody.
Oh, there you go. That's a good excuse. I don't really have an excuse. At least you have a good excuse.
Yeah, so will Miami have a good excuse? Well, no, they're the underdog. Will Florida have a good excuse if they don't take down Miami Saturday?
Florida State.
Oh my gosh, did I say Florida?
You did. It's all right, buddy.
I've got the hot mic clip in front of me on the screen. So. Things fun in Gainesville. Almost as fun as Auburn. So Auburn named Cadillac Williams as her interim coach. Love it.
Yeah, man. I love it, too. That's awesome. That's going to be a fascinating coaching search, man. There's some real names out there that they can go throw a lot of money at.
Ooh, Carnell Cadillac Williams, interim coach at Auburn. Again, Florida State. Get it right, Aslan. 9.5-point favorites. I should check out my bookie. I saw it elsewhere, 9.5.
I was gonna say, I think it might be dropping, buddy. I think once Cristobal came out on Monday and said that they're optimistic about Van Dyke. And that's the thing, man. If Garcia was going to play, I thought 9.5 was too low.
It's 7.5 right now. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, so it's dropping, which probably means that they're getting word that Van Dyke's going to give it a go. But, yeah, man, I thought if Garcia was going to play, I thought the spread should have been 14 or something. Like, that's how bad that offense has looked. He had 5 turnovers in the blowout loss at home to Duke, and then went on the road and didn't put up a touchdown. So and then you have one of the best offenses in the country rolling into your stadium. Even if you defend them pretty well, you got to assume Florida State's going to put somewhere up in the mid-20s. Even if they don't play all that well, then that would be enough. That would be more than enough against the Jake Garcia-led offense, I would think.
What was some of your bigger takeaways then from what we heard from the coordinators? I guess we can obviously start off with Mike Norvell. What caught your ear about? I think the fact that he seems so steadfast and confident that, like, yeah, we're preparing for Tyler Van Dyke. I was like, whoa, really? I thought the prognosis was 3 weeks, they were saying down there from Kane Sport, and we're not 3 weeks after that injury against Duke. So that kind of was the biggest thing I took away. But at least that's from the opposition. Anything Florida State-centric that the head coach said about his team that you found interesting, Corey, or most interesting?
Yeah, it's all interesting, Aslan. Come on. Talking about, I wanted, and I was the one that asked a lot about Jordan Travis because it just, we saw what happened on the sidelines at NC State. And then what happened Saturday with the timeouts when they were on the red zone, on the goal line before they ended up giving the ball away. He's just so demonstrative. Much more so than I ever remember him being, right? Am I imagining this?
Demonstrative has a negative connotation, like animated maybe, but even if it has maybe a negative connotation. But yeah, he is outwardly displaying his emotions and the amount of sort of give a damn that he has. It's cool. It's a good thing. I'm not being critical.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of growing up when you would see but that's, I don't know that he's doing this, but like Dan Marino and Dan Fouts would just scream down Tom Brady does it. They scream down his teammates. Is Jordan Travis kind of graduating to that kind of quarterback? Because I'm all for it, man.
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal when quarterbacks hold, especially really good ones, hold their teammates accountable. And I feel like there's something different about the way he's played these last few games. And so I asked Norvell and Alex Atkins about that, but Norvell was like, yeah, because Norvell talked about how he practiced angry last week after the NC State game. He practiced like it seemed like he was angry, which I think is probably good. I mean, it turned out to be a pretty darn good game for Jordan Travis, and he practiced really well last week. So it's like, and I know after the game he said, I don't want to lose another football game this season.
Yep.
So that, man, to take the ownership, and that's what Norvell talked about, and Atkins too, is ownership of his job, his role, this offense. I just think 2 years ago when they went down there to Miami, and Jordan Travis played in that game. I think he took some snaps at quarterback. He was a receiver running reverse. They had him at running back throwing passes. But that wasn't his offense, man. And those teammates, I don't think they believed in him, and I don't know if he believed in himself. 2 weeks later against Jacksonville State, maybe it was the next week, he becomes the starting quarterback. And I don't remember even that year in 2020 or the first portions of 2021. I just don't know that he had that part of the quarterback job down where it was like, okay, yeah, it's one thing to make plays and score points. That's great, but there's more to that position. You're a leader. You're the leader. You're the face of the program, man. You and Mike Norvell are the face of the team. And it's almost as if, and in a good way, he feels the weight of the season on him, and the weight of expectations are on him. And he doesn't want to disappoint himself, his teammates, whatever. And I feel like that's made him ultra competitive. And that's awesome. Now, you don't want him to make mistakes. You don't want him to get too hyped up. But I just, for whatever reason, it was like that game at NC State, the one they gave away, I just saw, it seemed like that was a different kid that we had never seen before, ever.
Yeah.
And then you see him screaming. He might have been screaming at Norvell after they had to call a timeout again because somebody wasn't on the field or somebody wasn't lined up in the right spot. He was legitimately angry at his coaches or the sideline or the players. And it's like, yeah, man, you don't have to just be there and throw your hands up. What are you going to do? Timeout. We'll fix it. You put a lot into this. He's invested a ton into this team and this program, and it's good that it bothers them when they make mistakes because they do make mistakes. And I think that's a really good place to be when your quarterback who's really good starts taking that kind of accountability.
Any fear that he's going to maybe put too much pressure on himself? I feel like he had that confidence, and listen, I've never been more confident in my life or my career going into the LSU game. We saw how good he played early on in that game. I think like he continues to try to kind of push himself and embrace and become more assertive into that sort of maybe, looking at a Tom Brady, looking at these guys that take, real accountability over their guys and they've earned it. They have equity. Maybe he finally feels that. Any concern that he's going to try and there's that line of pressing, or do we feel that he's played enough football, he's been in enough situations, he knows how to manage that sort of even keel level you have to be at?
Normally, I would say yeah, because I thought the best game he played last year was at North Carolina, and he was all smiles the whole game. Looked like it was kind of carefree and loose and whatever. But since that NC State game, I know that we can say that he didn't have a perfect game against Clemson by any means, but he accounted for 3 touchdowns and 320 yards of offense. And then the next week, he accounted for 390 yards of offense and 3 more touchdowns. So with no interceptions. That, to me, coming off that NC State game and how demoralizing that must be for him, right? Like, we were all upset by it. You guys listening were upset by it. Imagine being Jordan Travis. Like, he's the one that threw the pick that lost them the game. And it wasn't a good decision. And he did not play well in the second half. And for him to suffer for 2 weeks, a week going into that Clemson game, and then I thought he played well against Clemson. Not perfect. Who does? It's Clemson. Yeah. But 300 yards of total offense against that defense, 3 touchdowns. That's good. That's a good performance. And then next week, I thought he was even better. Like, he was 24 of 38. He had at least 4 drops, including 2 for touchdowns. Man, he played exceptional in the pocket against Georgia Tech. So, no, normally I'd be like, man, I like the kid that I don't want him to be too tight and too high strung and melting down and being like James Blackman did in the bowl game. But he hasn't shown that the last 2 weeks. He's shown that he can handle it, and maybe he's about to take even another big, maybe not a big jump, but another jump in performance. Because, again, man, did you at any time in that Georgia Tech game, did you feel like when he dropped back he was going to make a poor throw or a poor decision? No. I mean, he just seems like he's so comfortable with everything that's going on. And I think he's almost to the point now, Aslan, where we kind of overlook it. Like, yeah, Jordan just had a good game. Yeah, that's what he does. It's like, yeah, man, that's a big deal. You're going into that game on Saturday night with the best quarterback on the team, with the best quarterback on the field. Maybe one of the 5 or 10 best quarterbacks in the country. That should give you confidence, because that kid seems to have a ton of confidence in himself right now.
All right, 10. I'll say 10. Maybe one of the best 10. I don't know about 5.
Hey, who are you putting ahead of him? Bo Nix?
Yeah.
You don't think Jordan would do all right in that offense with those players?
Nah, man, it's all Bo.
I guess you could say, hey, he didn't with Dilly last year, did he? It's like he wasn't throwing. Bo Nix ain't throwing to Andrew Parchment.
Yeah. He actually, according to Pro Football Folks, was given the S against Miami, so he apparently started that game. But yeah, he graded out at 39.8. And his numbers
Jordan?
now, yeah, Jordan, yeah. And this,
he had like a crazy.
Snaps. Yeah, I mean, we realized it was insane. Their head coach wasn't there, and it was nuts.
But I think he had the worst play he had was like a crazy throwback sack fumble.
Yeah,
you remember that? Some weird thing where he got sacked and fumbled 20 yards downfield. Just a really bizarre way they were using him.
Yeah, it's just so hard to figure out consensus for me. One man building consensus within himself and all the voices battling inside his head about just how good Jordan is. Because, I mean, you look at the number. I mean, he's 91.1 offensively graded on PFF. He's 90.4 as a passer.
What is he do what he is quarterback rating by PFF in the country?
I'm not there. I'm on a different screen.
Oh, well, geez. I'll do it then. You keep talking.
Because he can look amazing. I mean, he looked amazing against Boston College. I would talk about how are you going to defend this guy? How do you defend this offense for 60 minutes? Georgia Tech got a piece of it. But kind of sandwiched in there, we saw the moments. And listen, man, no one's perfect, man. Bryce Young's got bad stretches. C.J. Stroud has bad stretches. My guy Max Duggan, bad stretches. This happens to all these guys. But I wonder what will happen when the coverage holds up downfield, when there's the pressure in his face, because when he's on rhythm and on time, and again, man, when the play is drawn up as is, and this is read number one, if not, go here, go here, go here. He goes through his progressions. Yeah, man, he's one of the top 5, 10 quarterbacks in the country. But when things aren't there, I wonder if that's the next big step now, because we did see him play with a good amount of poise against Clemson, which is much more talented on the defense than Miami is. But you're at home in that game. I just think this Miami game is going to tell us so much, really. Kind of a line in the sand has been drawn right now that you can hope and just Florida State gives you so much good feelings about what this offense can be at times, but then you also are tempered by bad first halves against Wake Forest, a bad first half against Clemson, a bad second half against NC State, which, hey, man, again, as I said, it happens to the best of them. But let's now see high-stakes game on the road. It maybe not all work, but then you figure out a way to make it all sort of connect the dots and execute really high. This game, I think, will go a long way to silencing any sort of doubt around Jordan Travis once and for all. Not that there's a lot, right? I think most of it's
I was going to say, I can't. There can't be much, right? I know that people are upset with the way the NC State game ended. I get it. And I know when you watch every play a quarterback has in a season, I'm looking at it right now. I don't know how many he's had. 254 dropbacks this year. So he's probably been on the field for 450 plays.
490.
Well, almost 500 plays. Well, yeah, man, there's probably 10% of those he's fouled up. So that's 50 plays right there you can pick to, or 45 plays you can pick to. They're like, well, yeah, he did that wrong. He did that. Well, yeah, man, they all do. Jimbo used to say that all the time. Like, quarterbacks have to make a decision on every play. 80 snaps a game. Yes, they are going to make mistakes. They are going to make mistakes. But, yeah, man, so I'm looking at it now, Aslan. He is the 5th highest-rated quarterback in the country. He's behind Drake May, Hendon Hooker, Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Okay, Rourke, I see you.
CR.
Yeah, I don't know what draft class you are, but maybe you might be coming to Tallahassee here soon. You're not going to want to be in Ohio forever. Bryce Young is 4th. Jordan Travis is 5th. Caleb Williams is 6th. Cam Rising at Utah is 10th. Stetson Bennett's, I don't even see where Stroud is. So he's, according to Pro Football Focus, and we put a lot of stock in those numbers, he has been the 5th best quarterback in the country. He's been the 3rd best throwing quarterback in the country. His passing numbers are the 3rd best in the country. Now, but the point of what I'm saying here is I know you guys can point to moments and games and stretches where you're like, man, Jordan hadn't played really well. Yeah, no, that happens. That happens, man. Like, I was going to say DJ Stewart struck out.
Yeah, go throw 4 incompletions in a row against Boston College when the game is over. Like, again, man, like the crucial moments in the bigger games.
NC State's a good defense, though. They have something to do with it too. And Clemson's a good defense. So they're gonna force you into mistakes.
Yes, yeah. All right,
that happens.
Yeah, so there's been 3 games now. Let's figure out a way in that crucial moment against Miami, 3rd and 7, when you're up by 4 or something crazy in the fourth quarter. Let's put the foot on the throat.
Agreed.
Yeah, on the road.
On the road. Yeah, on the whole, Jordan Travis has been very good this year.
Absolutely.
He's certainly been better than we could have ever dreamed he was going to be. So that said, you got 4 games left to play this thing out. And I think, like you were saying, I think it's past the point where people doubt Jordan Travis, or they shouldn't anyway. I mean, again, he's, by every measure, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the country. The problem is they're still terrible at 4th down. I guess they went 1 for 2 in that game, so their percentage went up. And then they had the horrible red zone trip to start that game. Now, that's not on Jordan Travis necessarily, but there's little things like we talked about yesterday, the throw to Daniel down the sideline. That's a catchable ball. I'm going to need you to make that catch. It wasn't a great throw. Put it on his numbers. You know who you're throwing to. That kid doesn't have a crazy catch radius. Put it on his chest and make that throw. There's some other throws down the middle of the field. Johnny Wilson against Clemson, I think. Deuce Spann against Georgia Tech, where he's not hitting the deep ball down the middle of the field like you'd like. But by and large, he's been very good, and you have the best quarterback going into that game. And I just think I thought, because he had such an odd career, right? He started at Louisville. Florida State he was a lifelong Florida State fan, but Florida State didn't want him. He goes to Louisville. He transfers here, but nobody cares. Most notably his head coach. He doesn't get any playing time until Taggart leaves, and then he becomes just a runner. And then 2020, he's an afterthought. It's going to be it's James Blackman's team. And then Jordan Travis has to come in, or one of the freshmen, Chuba, it was going to be Chuba to come save the day. I just feel like now he's finally taken ownership of what he is and how good he can be and what he means to this team. And he's taken that quarterback job very, very seriously, which we'll see. I think it's really good. I've been encouraged by the way he's played after, as you said, a little bit of animation on the sidelines at NC State and animated out of those timeouts. But yeah, so I asked Atkins and I asked Norvell about Travis just because I'll probably write on something this week about he just seems a little different to me. But it's not like it's not going well for him. He's played really well these last 2 games, in my opinion, since kind of becoming a little more animated.
Yeah, he's gone from like Hulk Hogan to Hollywood Hogan. He's gone heel, not complete heel.
He's
turn,
a villain.
Yeah.
He's a villain. Yeah,
Do it,
I
Jordan,
can't wait.
love
He's gonna be flipping it upside down. He's gonna be doing that like the sad face, like the kid at the basketball game. Like he's gonna be doing all that, man.
Kaysen, I think the kid's name was Kaysen. The kid from Duke did the best Miami. I mean, we always do the U upside down thing. If you're a Florida State fan, there's the photo of Jermaine Johnson doing it last year. But he did like the diamond cutter, like Diamond Dallas Page, where the kid from Duke put the U above his head and then threw his hands down over his knee and like broke the U over his knee. It was baller from a dude from Durham. I loved it.
That was the best one. That's the best thing anybody's done with it because it's kind of tired to do the upside down U. He really put his stamp on it. That was the best one. That's the best anti-Miami celebration I think I've seen.
Yeah. Moving on to the defense now, Adam Fuller gives out the big candy bars apparently on Halloween. Won't disclose his address for next year, kids, but do some scouting on that.
He really didn't want to answer that question.
He didn't. He didn't want to answer the Thanksgiving question last year either, so it's our thing. It's our little
that's what y'all I like it. I like the back and forth you guys have.
Yeah. But Pooches too. I'm like, like he thought I was asking like if he's actually going to go out trick or treating. I just want to know like who makes the decision at home. Like, do you have the wife like here's $100, babe, go get us candy, or do you say, babe, go buy us Kit Kats, Reese's cups, and nothing else? But anyhow, these guys got bigger fish to fry.
Papuchis was very on point and said, look, we got kind of a big game this week, so I'm not going to be rushing home to do the Halloween stuff. So we understand. We get it. It is a big game.
It's 5-3 Florida State taking on 4-4, man. If this was
live a little, John. Come on, you only live once, buddy. Go enjoy Halloween.
It's just 93. Your guy wouldn't be asking silly questions, but sometimes it's fun to see peek behind the curtain a little bit, if you will. Now that we kind of have an idea, possibly that Tyler Van Dyke will start or play a significant part of this game, perhaps that's the plan for Miami. Maybe it makes the question a little bit less relevant, but it's always hard to talk to a coach about playing a team that's struggling because they don't want to jinx it. They don't want to sound disrespectful. They don't want to provide bulletin board material. But with the way that Miami has been playing of late, and, Van Dyke had good numbers against Virginia Tech, but they weren't producing all that great. He goes down first half against Duke, and then the wheels completely come off. In Charlottesville, again, they don't score a touchdown. They play in 4 overtimes and are not able to score a touchdown, even when the ball is moved to the 2-yard line or whatever in overtimes 3 and 4. I don't know how often Florida State lines up other than maybe Boston College and Georgia Tech, especially Georgia Tech with their outmatched offense. And, Boston College lost to UConn last week, so what's going on in Boston right now? Boy. But, it is still Miami. I understand, man. There's a level of a modicum of respect and just being a rational human being. They're like, yeah, we're not going to go down there and push these dudes around. But hasn't Miami played? Have they not produced at a level where I talk about wanting to see Jordan make another step, and that's pushing it really. Like I want him to bash his head on his ceiling almost. But this defense, I don't know where their ceiling is. But should this not be a game where they go down and really? I don't want to say physically outman a Miami team, but, man, if Miami's not scoring against Virginia and struggling against Virginia Tech, can this be the opportunity for this defense, Corey, to, dictate terms to the opposition?
You had your 2 best defensive players are Fabian Lovett and Jared Verse. They're both coming off a game where they played 25 snaps. You have to imagine you double that this week. That is not a good offensive line at all that Miami has. So that is where you feel like, okay, you can dominate. If you can dominate up front and not let them run the ball, which is what they'll try to do, but if you're not giving up 150, 170, 200 yards rushing up the middle because you got your guys back now and they're getting healthy, yeah, man, I think you should control that game on defense. Like, you're going to give up plays because you don't have a bunch of Deons and Buckleys and Telvin Smiths running around. They're going to make some plays, and the Colby Lewis kid is a good receiver. Their tight end is good. So they're going to make some plays downfield, especially if Van Dyke is in the game. But I don't know, man. Boston College and Georgia Tech, are they the only two teams that Florida State's played that has a worst offense? Wouldn't you say? That count?
Right, yeah, Power 5 wise. Yeah, because Louisville can mess around and score points despite them struggling.
Hey, ask those Demon Deacons, baby. Especially you give them the ball 8 times and a half. That's crazy, man, by the way. We didn't even talk about that. 6 turnovers in a quarter? I mean, that has to be a record, right?
Did we confirm that? My brother said that, and I put in the group text, but I never confirmed it. But my brother usually
I would just think, how many times do you even get 6 possessions in a quarter? That equates to 24 in a game.
Yeah.
So that's a ton of possessions, and to turn it over each time you get it. I can't imagine somebody having the ball 7 times in a quarter and turning it over 7 times. So I feel like that's got to be an NCAA record. It's certainly an ACC record. But yeah, man, that's crazy. And it just shows you that's the whole thing is like, that's what to completely get off point. What bothers you so much about the NC State loss, coming back to that, because I'm always going to bring that up, folks. I'm never forgetting that, is that you gave that one away. You were the better team, and you just handed them the game. And because there might be a crazy game in these next 4, where for the gods are against you and you somehow turn it over 6 times in a quarter. You're not winning that game. Clearly, you're going to get blown out if you have a meltdown like that, and the ball just keeps coming out of. So that's why you want to win the games where you're in position to win and you're the better team. Anyway, but getting back to the defense, yeah, man, that again, when we go back to that Clemson game, the reason I was so disappointed is because that Clemson team doesn't have a very good offense. Yeah. And you made them look pretty darn good. So don't go do the same thing this time. They are going to score a touchdown or 2. Clear. I mean, they will. Georgia Tech did. By the way, I thought that was odd, right? That answer that Fuller gave on the touchdown that they had at the start of the second half.
He's like, yeah, obviously we don't want them to score.
Not that. It was like, I empower our guys to make.
Yeah,
I empower them to make reads and make plays, and it was like a matchup coverage thing that I guess they got wrong. I thought he was just going to say Jamie Robinson got picked off trying to cover that guy, but I think the real answer is Jamie Robinson shouldn't have been going with that guy. But they made a mistake in their communication, and he's like, but I empower them. I love these guys. They put in a lot of work. So I think Jamie made a mistake in declaring he was going to cover that man, that receiver one-on-one. It should have been more of a zone concept, and he decided to go with him and got picked off, and we all saw what happened. But, I mean, what when you look at Miami, what they've done, 9 points against A&M. That was with Tyler Van Dyke, by the way.
Correct.
8 turnovers against Duke. Part of that game was with Tyler Van Dyke. 17 against North Carolina. That was all with Tyler Van Dyke, even though he threw for 400 yards.
What was
this
17?
Last game?
We're talking about 17 against – you said something about 17. Where did that come from?
Against North Carolina, didn't they score 17 points?
24. They lost 27-24.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah, my bad. I thought it was 24-17. So when I think they scored a touchdown right there at the end when it didn't matter after they'd given up the field goal. So you can't then go down there and let them have a good day because they're a bad offense. You are a capable offense. You are not a good offense. You are a capable defense. You've got to be as good a defense as Virginia, right?
Yeah.
So I know if Van Dyke's playing, it's different than Garcia's playing. I know it's at home. There's a more juice, but there's no excuse to be giving up anywhere in the neighborhood of 28 points in this game. The Florida State offense the number they should have to get to win this game is 24.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that to me is so that if the defense plays like it should, and it's got its guys back now, and they're healthier and they're getting healthier, and guys that can impact the game up front, I think there's just no excuse. You just can't give them touchdowns. And I mean like straight up fall down in coverage or lose a jump ball.
I mean, I can live with losing a jump ball. I can't live with missing an assignment and just running scot-free, that kind of stuff.
And that hasn't happened a ton, right? But it just
I don't know. I didn't see the Georgia Tech score. I was walking back from the Hotel Indigo. What happened?
Well, that was the Jamie Robinson play where he's running He's running with a receiver across the field. Another receiver is coming the opposite way and basically just shoulders him to the ground. It could have been called a pick, but they didn't. And so he's running. So that leaves him wide open on the right side of the field, and it was a walk-in touchdown. But that's what I'm talking about. You can't have those kind of mistakes. You can't give them free points. If they somehow go 13 plays, 80 yards. I know it's frustrating as a Florida State fan because it's, here we go again. They can't go off the field on third down. They can't do that 3 or 4 times. But they can hit a 70-yard play a couple of times. Or they can, if you're just going to give a running back a huge hole, he can go hit a 60-yard run. Or if you're going to let them just throw fades until they catch one of them, you could give up some points that way. Just make it hard for them because they're not a good enough offense to consistently move the ball, pick up first down. At least they haven't all year been an offense that can move the ball consistently and go score. And by the time maybe they find some sort of rhythm, you might have 21 points on the board yourself and the game could feel like it's over. So just start well. And don't let them score the first drive of the second half, Adam. Just don't do it. Whatever you have to do, man, just don't let them do it. For heaven's sake.
You know sports and you pick winners all the time, so why not get paid for it? At MyBookie. MyBookie.ag has the biggest online selection of odds and contests for all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. Bet on the NFL, NCAA, maybe even the World Series. And swing for the fences with the new Money Bag. MyBookie's Money Bag is a one-of-a-kind opportunity to spin for crazy odds on props and futures. Just place a bet, spin the wheel, and get ready to score epic odds on the best teams, athletes, and events. Sign up free today. Promo code WARCHANT gets you a deposit match dollar for dollar instantly of any amount up to $1,000. Again, promo code WARCHANT to claim your deposit bonus and give yourself the competitive edge. It's not just a sports book, it's a community. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. MyBookie.ag, promo code WARCHANT. It's Tuesday. Tom's back, y'all. Shout out to Corey and myself for finally doing our job and getting Tom back on the show here. Tom, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, guys. It's Miami week. Feel the extra pep in the step, and I enjoy the pep in the step. Georgia Tech at noon just doesn't do it like Miami at 7:30 on a Saturday night.
9.5-point favorite Florida State over Miami. This is the good thing, I guess. I miss not having the romanticism in my heart, Tom. I kind of have to manufacture some of the hate. It's there in me, but, it's like, life goes on. It used to not go on, but I don't want to overlook this Miami team. I think maybe what's kind of grounded me here a little bit in the last 24 hours or so is hearing Mike Norvell say they expect Tyler Van Dyke to play. Is that gamesmanship on Mike's part? Is that he's pulling a Dabo thing? Like, they're going to have zero back and then Fabian doesn't play? Or is that him just being meticulous and covering all the bases, and how much of an impact could Tyler Van Dyke make in your estimation of this game?
Well, I wouldn't prepare a ton for Jake Garcia, given that their offense can't do anything with him at quarterback. So if you're going to be prepping the defense this week, you might as well look at Van Dyke film because that's the better version of Miami's film. It might be gamesmanship, but I just think that's good business for the defensive staff to be preparing for the best player possible. And then if not, you get a quarterback who had a tough time engineering anything last week against Virginia. If it wasn't for the free points you get in overtime just by the nature of where the ball is spotted, you're looking at a 6 spot for the Canes, who crossed over midfield just one time in the second half against a Virginia program that's not good this year. So I think that's where it's probably at.
I think, but Cristobal did say that they're optimistic, right?
Yes.
I think he did say that about Van Dyke. So, yeah, I mean, you have to plan that he's going to play. But the good news is even when he's played, I know he had a couple of good games there, or a couple of high yardage games. They're not scoring points no matter what he does. They don't score a ton of points.
Yep.
And you can't imagine coming off an injury like that, which certainly looked like his throwing shoulder to me, that he is going to be 100% healthy.
No, but again, I mean, Jake Garcia looks so horrible that anything would be an upgrade for them. And
well, sure.
I'm sure, if he's going to go and it is his throwing arm, they'll figure out a way to have that thing close enough to 100%. But now 9.5, I know we're not the betting show, Tom, but it's Florida State, Miami. Like I don't know. I guess you could win by 2 scores and cover, and it could still be a close game. Or, I mean, I don't know how do we see this kind of unfolding with the way Florida State played up and down against Georgia Tech, and the way Miami's just been pretty stagnant to downright poor over the last 5 weeks. I mean, shoot, the whole season really.
Yeah, I think it starts with Miami's defensive front. That front four is good. It's the best segment on the team, I think. I saw a stat over the weekend from Sports Info Solutions that said that in terms of pressure rate with no blitzes, Miami's top 5 in the country at generating pressures without bringing extra bodies to the fold. So, if they can get Florida State's offense off the field or hold them to field goal attempts, that's the recipe for having a game linger around. The concern for the line, if you were ever going to play it, and I wouldn't touch this game, but if I did, it's what is Miami's offense going to do? And how many points does the defense have to hold Florida State to in order for this game to be within touch? And I think that's going to be how it plays out on Saturday is, does the offense handle situations better? How does the offensive line hold up against a crew that's pretty good at generating pressure without blitz packages? And can you get down the field and beat those corners if you can generate enough time for Jordan Travis? So that's, I think, how it got there and arrived at that line. But if you're a Miami fan this week, all you're doing is focusing on the horrendous offense. I think for us this week up here in Tallahassee covering Florida State, it's just a focus of how good can Miami's defense be in a loud environment that they only get once every 2 years down there at Hard Rock.
Tom, I think you and I are maybe a little bit closely more aligned on just the way that we process the Georgia Tech game. Obviously, I don't think you could still come back and beat Miami, even if you start slow like that, but not a good recipe. So how do we process what happened against Georgia Tech? The fact that they did score over 40 points, the fact that they did hang over 600 yards on them. But that first quarter, just these situations, goal line, red zone, these are the moments that these rivalry games come down to. And it feels like Florida State still hasn't figured that out. Or is that too critical and not fair?
No, I don't think it's too critical, and I like it when we don't always see the game the same way, or we have different takeaways or priorities of how we do our takeaways. That makes it more fun, and certainly we're not going to script something like that, like a morning show on ESPN would at 10 a.m. or Fox Sports 1. But I don't know that I learned a ton about this group this weekend because I already knew that between the 20s, they can handle business, and they're an explosive offense. I was just hoping to see that on third downs and in the red zone, they looked a little bit sharper. And they didn't, at least early on in that game. And given that Georgia Tech just wasn't going to move the football without you helping them with that backup quarterback in, I was hoping to see a game in which Tate Rodemaker could play 2 quarters or, maybe 3 series and AJ Duffy gets in for 1. And, the good news about that game is obviously you did go for 600 plus yards. You did produce 40 points and also some film that can keep everybody's attention because every phase made some mistakes on Saturday. So some blowout wins, you play perfect, and there's nothing you can learn off of it. There's plenty, Corey and Aslan, to learn about this. I think you guys would agree with that, even if you were happy with the way that game played out and how dominant Florida State looked for stretches. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, and we talked about it on yesterday's show, but like what you should like about that game is, the first 2 drives couldn't have gone worse. Well, no, they could have. They could have been 3 and outs, but aside from that, getting down to the 1 yard line and doing what you did, the 4th down drop, when you're going for it on 4th down and you drop that pass. But after that, they had a stretch, Tom and Aslan, where they converted 8 straight 3rd downs. They had a stretch. They did not score in the red zone again. They were perfect after that first one. And for this team, we can roll your eyes and say, all right, they were 5 out of 6. Well, that's better than they've been all year. So maybe they got that nonsense out of the way in the first quarter, and maybe they can build upon that. Like they did respond to an awful set, to playing situations poorly yet again. They did respond after that and just mow them down, just go up and down the field where Georgia Tech really had no answers. And they took advantage of the opportunities when they got inside the 20 and scored every time. So I thought that was encouraging, if nothing else. And I shouldn't say if nothing else, because again, you did outgain them by 400 yards. And I like that we're in a spot, and this isn't sarcasm. I do like that we're in a spot where there's hand-wringing over a game in which you covered the spread and put up more yardage than you put up in 6 years in a football game. That, to me, tells me that this program is going in the right direction. But yes, if you start slowly, and I wrote this in the column on Saturday, if you give Miami a 10-point swing when you're getting ready to score, and then instead you go give them 3 points on a ridiculous fumble, you're probably going to lose the game. You can't overcome that kind of stuff, but hopefully they're done with it. They've seen it. They've learned the lesson. As Alex Atkins said on Monday, they're learning some hard lessons, but hopefully the emphasis there is learning. And that when you get in these moments, because you're not going to go up and down the field against Miami, you're not going to score every time you have the ball. But when you give yourself an opportunity to score, Take advantage of it now. Be a little more detail-oriented.
I understand that Georgia Tech's defense has not looked that sort of was unable to muster that kind of resistance.
They were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You have an offense that overwhelms mediocre defenses. That has not been the case here since 2013, where you just maybe 16 stretches of 16, where you straight up overwhelmed defenses. They were overwhelmed. They had no answers.
I think Florida State, and I don't say this like as a pejorative. I think Florida State's just a bully, man. I think when they have the opportunity, whether it's a Boston College or it's a Georgia Tech, man, they will bully you. They will make you look silly. They will take the fight to you. But I don't know where on the spectrum Miami falls in terms of them. Can you bully Miami? I mean, you weren't able to bully Wake Forest. You weren't able to bully NC State. You weren't able to bully Clemson. I don't know if Miami's closer to those three teams, which are, I think they're all ranked still. I think NC State hung on because that MJ Morris kid might actually be a pretty decent quarterback. But I don't know. I think Miami's probably closer on the spectrum to Boston College and Georgia Tech, but it is a rivalry game. It's just Florida State can make you fall in love with what they can be against inferior opponents. But when they're going, heads up against somebody that's kind of on their level, we start seeing things that they give us a little bit of pause. And then, I mean, you've mentioned this before several weeks ago, Tom, about Florida State's reached a point now where, they've dug out of the hole. We know they're not going to only be competitive with teams. They can beat good football teams. So now every single moment in these games, we're looking at this, we're projecting forward. Like, all right, so when Florida State does get those 5-star recruits, when they do get the top guys in the transfer portal, and they are playing a top 5 team, and they are down by 3 points in the fourth quarter, and it's 4th and 2 on the 7-yard line, like, will they be able to make the right plays? We're not there yet because it's a Miami team that's not even 500, but I think that's my concern is that I don't think they're going to be able to bully Miami team, and they're going to be in crucial situations in games. There's going to be big third downs. There's going to be big fourth downs they're going to have to convert. And I don't know, maybe to Corey's point, hopefully they got that out of their system against Georgia Tech. This is going to be a real big indicator of just how much they've grown and how big of a bully they can be on the block in the conference, I feel, Tom.
Yeah, I agree. I think to Corey's point, this is all a conversation that you only can have if you've done a lot of hard work and improved as a football team. We can't have this conversation unless Florida State is in a different place than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And I'm glad to be having this conversation. I hope we have more advanced and pointed conversations in the next year or two, because that means that the difference that you're splitting is between a 10-win season and a single-digit win season. The best of what Florida State can do right now is nightmarish for defensive coordinators. There's no question about that. The quarterback is way better at throwing the football than he was a year ago. Those receivers are playmakers. You do have real playmakers at receiver, and they're really good at scheming up explosive plays in the run game, even if they're not consistently winning at the line of scrimmage. But the one thing I will say is, even in that stretch of 3 games that you lose against ranked opponents, in terms of yards per play and at the line of scrimmage, Florida State won those games in terms of consistency of efficiency. It's down to those situations. So is this the final step in the process for Florida State to cross into a completely different place in the eyes of anybody who's a fan, covering it locally or covering it nationally? Is that the final step, that you succeed more in those situations? And if so, can they do it sooner than later? Because they're at a critical time for the program right now. This month is huge. You're going against an in-state rival with a first-year head coach who's still pulling down really good recruits despite awful results in year one, especially on the offensive side of the football. And you'll be doing the same thing against Billy Napier and Florida, having a down year in his first year, but he's still got the new car smell too. You've got to take advantage of this situation right here, right now. So I think that's why we all have the urgency in our voices. We're making these points. It's a critical moment.
Yeah, I would say this is the, I said, basically, I said last week that if Norvell lost to Georgia Tech, that would be a wrap. And I think we would all agree with that. Like, he loses his first game of his career to Georgia Tech, and then 2 years later, he's losing to him again. Well, he made that, that team proved it moot by just dominating that team. I'm not to that point with this game, but we'll see how it plays out and how it shakes out. But you have no excuse to lose this game. None. You are a better team than them. I think Florida State, I said this yesterday, Tom, I don't know if you agree with me. When you look in totality of what their efficiency rankings, where they are on total offense, where they are in total defense, the yardage they put up, I think they might be the best 3-loss team in the country. And I know that's like being the most honest man in prison. Great. You're still in prison. I get it. You still got 3 losses. But, man, I think they're a good team.
Yep.
I think they're a good team. and they need to go prove it. They need to go prove it. Yeah, their last 2 wins are against Georgia Tech and Boston College, the two of the worst teams in this conference. Miami won't be much different. If you beat Miami, would that be their 5th loss, 6th loss, whatever it would be? Miami's not good either, but I think you could prove something to the state, and you could prove something to your fans, maybe even your own players, that, okay, this thing is officially turned around now. Like, you'd be 6-3. It'd be 2 straight wins over Miami. It'd be your best road win, probably, just because of the environment and the rivalry. And you do what you're supposed to do. There's a reason you're favored. There's a reason you're a top 15 offense in this country. Go down and play like it. Play like it. And go beat that team. And don't have it come down to the final 2 minutes. Have the game be over. I think they're that much better than that team that they should do that. But rivalry games are weird, and who knows. But at any rate, going back to your point, I absolutely think this is a critical month. I'm to the point with the way they looked Saturday, really the way they looked all year, except for second quarter against Wake and a second half against NC State. There's no excuse not to win out. I know college football is goofy. I know it's hard to win every Saturday. I get it. But I think they're better than every team they're going to play. And I think they're going to have the best quarterback in every game they play. Their offense is moving up down the field on everyone. There's no excuse to not go 4-0 this month. None, really. I mean, save for like 5 blocked punts or something crazy that happens, you should win these games. And you shouldn't be afraid as a Florida State fan to expect them to win these games, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably why I was focusing more on the negatives of a blowout win with Georgia Tech, because this is a big moment. And those things can't happen, even though you're much better, especially if Miami doesn't have their quarterback. Even though you're much better than Miami overall as a football team, if you do that kind of stuff, they're within the margin to make that interesting or be ahead at key moments late in the game. Syracuse the same way. Now, they've got injury concerns. We'll see what that game looks like and what their injury report looks like in a week. But still, you can mess up a lot against Georgia Tech and get away with it. And so if they play clean, yes, I totally agree. They should, and they will go undefeated if they play clean in situations.
I'm not even sure they have to play. They don't have to play crystal clean. They're not playing the Cowboys and the Giants. Like, I know you just said, like, it's going to be harder. Like, nobody's going to be as bad as Georgia Tech left, but you're never going to play a clean game, right? That just doesn't happen. If you play the majority of it clean and don't just kill yourself with nonsense, that you don't have to be perfect to beat these teams, I guess, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's a good clarification. I'm not saying that they have to go the red zone, 6 possessions, 6 touchdowns. I mean, it's nothing crazy like that, or they don't have to go 12 of 12 on third down.
They didn't have to be perfect to beat Wake Forest or NC State, and they weren't, though, man. That's the thing. I mean, I get it, Corey. And this team is so helter-skelter because what you're saying is right. They might be the best 3-loss team in the country, if not for this half and that play. But, I mean, can't every other 3-loss team that's behind us probably say the same thing? This game, man, there's going to be those moments. And this is a 4-4 team, man. This is not even a ranked barometer test. This is not Death Valley. This is not Death Valley in Baton Rouge, man. It's Miami. It's going to be a 60-40 crowd. There's going to be crucial moments in this game. Finally shows that you've grown past these mental mistakes where you get in your own way. I haven't seen a lot of teams take things away from Florida State. I've seen Florida State shoot themselves in the foot in crucial situations in these losses, man. And I think we didn't see any of that in Georgia Tech. We saw in the first quarter, but it's the first quarter. You have so much time left in front of you, and the team is so horrible that doesn't really matter. You can't come out of a bye looking that way and make me think that, like, all right, we're crystal cruising awesome. Everything's lining up great. So this game, this is going to be a huge data point for me. And sorry to interrupt, Tom.
Oh, no. This is a roundtable discussion. This is what we like around here. Yeah. Again, there's a difference between playing perfect. If they play perfect football, they could play with any team in the country this year. Yeah. That's how much better they are. If they play really good Florida State football, especially on offense, I still think they can keep games close with everybody from 1 to 131. They can. That's how much better this program is. And I think that's why the conversation's kind of changed and the tenor in our voice. There have been a lot of years in the last 5, maybe all of them, where you're playing in a rivalry game and you feel like something has to go right in order for you to have a chance to be in a game, and then from there, can you win it? Now there's no more of those qualifiers. There's no more preambles. There's no more of that kind of stuff. It's you're better than your 2 in-state rivals. You're better than Syracuse, and certainly Louisiana is in the mix there as well. So go do it. Go do what you're supposed to do. And that's fun because before the season started, we thought what they were supposed to do was 7 or 8 wins. Now you're supposed to win 9 games this season. And you probably should have won 10 games this season.
Yeah, I honestly think this is a 10-win team. I think it's a 9 or a 10. It might still get there if they win out and win the bowl game.
I mean,
but,
all of this because of the way they looked against Georgia Tech. Like, this is crazy to me.
I think it's the way they looked in the second half against Clemson after that nonsense that happened. It's not normal for an offense to put up 480 and 28 points against Clemson. It's just not. And to run for 250 yards against them. Nobody does that. I know Clemson gets on big leads against everyone. Nobody runs for 240 yards against them. None. So to do that and then come off that and put up 640 yards against a competent defense where you never punt, that to me is what gets me, because I didn't want because before the Clemson game, all we had to go on, the freshest memory we had was the second half against NC State where they didn't score a point. They looked pretty good in the first half, then melted down in the second half. So for them to come back from that, obviously had some fourth down issues against Clemson because why wouldn't they? But to score 28 points, left points out there, put up 460 yards, outgain them, and then come the next week and outgain a team by 400 yards on top of what they did before the 3-game stretch. I see a team that, and I also look around the country and I look at the rest of this schedule. Like there isn't an NC State defense left. There isn't a Wake Forest offense left. These are all very beatable teams. So yeah, man, I just think that you have the best offense you've had since 2013. You have one of the best offenses in the country. To Tom's point, you got to play situations better. So the total offense, the scoring offense reflects the total offense, right? Didn't you read that stat, Aslan, that like they're 12th in the nation or 14th in the nation in total offense, but 48th in scoring offense? That's got to jive a little better.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
So that's all. I just think we've seen this potential of this team. There are not offenses that look like this, that do this to everyone they face. Running for 300 yards and 200 yards in 3 straight games against NC State and Clemson, or 2 of them, that's impressive. And then putting up 640 the next week is impressive. Now you go to Miami. I think we all think they're going to run all over Miami because this is what this offense does. They just run over people. And now you have a quarterback you can trust to make plays with his arm. I would be very disappointed if they didn't score 30 points. I don't know the last time I went into a game at Miami where I thought I would be disappointed if they didn't score 30 points. So I think that's where the bar has been raised, and we've seen the potential of what this team can be. And with 4 games left and a lot to play for, you hope it's time they put it together.
Well said. Tom, thanks for hanging around for so long, man. You also
let Tom have the last word. It's his segment. I just kind of hijacked it there at the end.
You're on a roll, man.
It's your guys' show. I mean, it's quite all right. The last thing I'd say, just to qualify something, I wasn't really thrilled with the way the game started against Georgia Tech. The reason I'm like Corey, the reason I see the potential in this group to do what it's going to do or should do in our minds in November is about the competition level of what's coming up. Yeah. It's not the meteor schedule. So that influences what I'm saying. And then when I say they can compete with everybody 1 through 131, I also think it's a down year in college football. And that's where, if they win the 9 or whatever it is by the end of the season, this was a gettable year. The stack of teams at the top in the next 4 or 5 seasons, I don't know if it will ever be as parity laden as this season is. So I felt like there's more opportunity this year to advance than in some other seasons where you're like, oh, nobody's touching Alabama. Nobody's touching Georgia, Clemson, you name the team, Florida State in 2013. There isn't that team that's out there. But I'm fired up to watch these next 4 weeks. And that's the fun part is November matters greatly. So I can't wait to watch what it is the Noles do in November because I think it's going to influence the next 2 or 3 seasons. I think it's that important.
Tom Lang, Director of Original Content for Warchant.com, Executive Producer of The Jeff Cameron Show. You can watch and listen to him Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, 1 to 3 o'clock right here on Warchant TV, as well as 93.3 FM in Tallahassee, terrestrial radio. Tom, thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
We love you, Tom. We love you.